there, this is episode 111 of the first 10 minutes. I'm Tony Parmenter.
I'm Steve Halliwell.
And I'm Aaron Williams.
And this is a video games podcast where we play the first 10 minutes of a video game. Then we sit down here to discuss how well that game communicates itself to the player, both in terms of what the game is about and how to play the game. And in response to our latest listener poll, which you can find at the first 10 minutes on Twitter, you, the listeners, voted for us to play The Gardens Between, which was a dead tie with the next game we'll be discussing on the next episode. Spooky suspense, even though you know the answer. So, Aaron, you played The Gardens Between. Take it away.
Oh, I did. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Aaron.
It's wonderful to have you here. The
Thanks,
Gardens
I
Between.
like being on my own podcast with you, also on your own podcast.
It is nice. It feels like home. Speaking of home, this game's kind of about that. But first, we need to do Wikipedia and we need to do Steam tags, as always.
You do.
So I've got Wikipedia. Steve, have you got...
All right, I'll get on it. Yep.
You're on it? Excellent. Okay, so Wikipedia describes The Gardens Between as The Gardens Between from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. The Gardens Between is a puzzle video game developed by Australian studio The Voxel Agents, released in September 2018 for Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 4. So this is a freshie, which means that the Steam tags might be slightly underdeveloped, but hopefully they've had an opportunity to get a little more.
They've had the chance to sort of age.
Excellent.
In this cask.
Let's mull.
So does it say fine soundtrack?
How many times has this soundtrack been distilled?
It's oaky notes. So, Gardens Between, Steam tells us it's an adventure, indie, puzzle, surreal, single-player, relaxing, great soundtrack, story-rich, short, 1990s, mystery, time manipulation, atmospheric, female protagonist, soundtrack, walking simulator, controller, 1980s.
So we have 2 decades represented in this game, do we?
It's very interesting. 1980s describes the time period,
Yes.
but 1990s is a possessive. Yes.
It's a very 90s, 80s.
So
Yeah.
this game exists in the 80s but belongs to the 90s.
Belongs to the 90s. Also, it contains a soundtrack. I love that there's a tag, just like this game has soundtrack.
Yeah, there is a soundtrack in this game. Don't worry.
Nice.
You won't be listening to silence.
So I'm going to assume that having read the first paragraph of Wikipedia and the Steam tags, we haven't unpacked all that this game has to offer. Otherwise, our podcast is redundant. So, Aaron.
Oh, no, we got it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
I want to know if the Steam version is different in its description of the game to the Switch version.
That's a fascinating idea. I don't currently have a Nintendo Switch in close proximity.
I'm doing the Googling now.
You're doing the Googling now.
The Steam description says it's a surreal puzzle adventure game that follows best friends, Arina and Frendt. I'm going to mispronounce that. I apologize.
I'm going to write that down because I didn't know that name until now.
As they fall into a mysterious world of beautiful garden islands. Manipulate time to solve puzzles and discover the secrets of each island. Ooh. A little bit more space to breathe.
Oh, yeah?
In the Nintendo platform storefront, apparently. Best friends, Arina and Frendt fall into a series of vibrant, dreamlike island gardens, peppered with everyday objects from their childhood. Together they embark on an emotional journey that examines the significance of their friendships, the memories they've built, what must be let go, and what should never be left behind. It goes on, but I'll stop there.
That was really nice. That filters over well into the introduction to this game. So the first thing that I hear when this experience begins, before I see anything, is rain. I'm hearing rain that slowly turns into a thunderstorm. That then fades in on this sort of like inner urban environment. So we're talking houses, but we're not talking the suburbs. This is like, just on the outskirts of a CBD. You can sort of see buildings in the distance that are, this is the city central here. Now I've written distinctly Australian here, and that's because of some of the items that litter the environment. One of them being a white Bunnings deck chair, and the other being wheelie bins for recycling. So with the green body and the yellow lid. Now that might be, local to Australia. That might be something that people see in other environments, but at the very least, for me right now, and this certainly continues, yeah, artifacts of Australian suburban identity are definitely at play here. So what we're looking at in this inner urban environment are two properties divided by fences, and there's a concrete path running down the middle that approaches a tree house on a hill, which I really like that this movie, there we go. That's an indicator of my energy levels right now. Where this game is called The Gardens Between, and that is kind of the first thing that you see is a garden that is in between two houses. And so the fact that that's the title, and the fact that this is the first thing that I see in the game, and this is the thing that the camera then starts to zoom into, indicates to me that this treehouse on a hill is somewhat important to whoever it is that I'm going to be playing in this game. So a couple more things before we get to the treehouse. There is a light on and a window open within each house, but every other light every other light is off. Every other window is closed. There's a blanket rope that's hanging out of one window. So it's nighttime. I'm already getting the sense that this game is about children, and they've snuck out. The camera then starts to zoom into the treehouse, and there are two kids sitting within there. One of them is using a torch that's been tied with rope to a ceiling beam as an overhead light, uses it to turn it on, and kind of illuminates the space. And there's just various sort of toys, objects, miscellaneous ephemera that indicates that this is very clearly their space. This is their little home away from home that they have created for each other in the garden between their houses. Now it feels like their space, but they're not happy. They're not looking at each other. They're looking down. They're not angry. They look sad. They look like there's something happening that they aren't too jazzed on. I don't get too long to really process this because a thunderclap occurs while this is happening. And time stops, as in like everything stops. The train that's moving down a track stops, the rain stops, and the kids notice this. The kids don't stop. They notice this, they react to it, and then time starts to reverse. Time goes backwards. And then
that's good. That's definitely an Australian thunderstorm.
Oh yeah, that's how it goes. That's, it's summertime's rolling around, February's just around the corner. It's floods and time reversal. This is Australia. Boom, boom, boom. So as this is happening, some like energy is being drawn into this sort of like orb that appears between the two children. And when I say energy, I'm like, it's like lines that kind of are luminous to a degree, that create a glowing ball in between them. One of them touches it, and along with the treehouse that they're in, they kind of like not blow up, but are fundamentally shaken. And the treehouse and them sort of fall down and disappear into a void. From here, from fading into the void, the game then dives straight into the play space. So they awake on the beach of a tiny island. And I say tiny island, it barely registers as an island. This is rock and foliage sticking out of the ocean. I can and do navigate the circumference of this island from bottom to top all around in less than a minute. So if surreality weren't yet apparent as a component of this, and if we hadn't already listed it as a Steam tag, it really definitely shines through now, given that we have two children who have washed up in a treehouse on the shore of a tiny island that also has cardboard boxes floating in the ocean that are about as big as the island, or at least comparable in size to the island, and boxes floating in the air as well.
So it's like a little conical diorama.
Yeah, totally. And I think a diorama, sort of like a bonsai type setup, is absolutely what you can be picturing in your head. That totally translates to what this is. Although, if you wanted to get just a really textual example of what this looks like, you could feel free to check out the video footage of me playing this, which is available on our YouTube channel, along with a shit ton of other good content. So from here, a control prompt appears on the screen. It shows me the entire PS4 controller, and it's got a the left control stick is nudging to the right, in an animation. So this is where I start to learn about how time is going to operate, and the fact that that thunderclap that stopped and reversed time has persisted to this environment that we're in. But controlling time is now within my hands. So holding left, holding right will move time either forward or backward. But it propels us and anything that is in motion within our environment simultaneously. So it's the sort of thing where it's like I'm essentially pressing play on a wind-up toy that is going to go the same way no matter what. And so I've written here that it's kind of like Super Hot, but on rails and more melancholy. So I start playing, because if there's anything that Super Hot wasn't enough of, it's melancholy. So I start playing with this toy. I start playing around with back and forthing. I inadvertently actually solved the first puzzle before I think I was supposed to. I think the idea was that I follow the control prompt, push to the right, move to an impasse that I can't pass through, as impasses tend to be. Impassably pass. But instead of doing that, I did what my designer brain thought to do, which is, you're asking me to go right. What happens if I go left? That's the solution to the puzzle. It's actually cool though. I'm not cranky about this, because it still did the job of teaching me that to and fro is my method of interaction for this experience. It will never be anything other than you're moving time forward or you're moving time backward.
Are you also moving through space as you change the flow of time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
the thing that pops into my head is something comparable, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, is Braid.
Braid is probably a good example, actually, and it specifically in the idea that Braid starts to play around with the concept that some things will definitely be static and only move when you move, but some things will move independent of you. Right. This slowly starts to integrate ideas of that, but for the most part, it hinges on you know how all of the animation and objects are going to behave within this loop. And then it's just a case of trying to find where are the minimal points of interaction that I can select to move these puzzle pieces around most effectively. Okay. Which is a terrible
scrubbing forwards and backwards, but there are things there that you can nudge or do something to that are going to change how that scrubbing eventuates.
Absolutely. Or I could interact with something to make it follow the path slightly differently.
Okay.
Or follow along another object's path, for instance. But anyway, so I start to observe the various objects around the environment, because I imagine that given I'm just navigating the circumference of grass and rock, that it probably wants me to be paying attention to what else is around there or what's out of place. So I see a strong trolley with a box marked bathroom. And that starts to paint for me, combined with the opening of the game and the kids being sad before then diving into this clearly not real environment, that something's happening here in terms of one of them is leaving. And I don't think that's something that I've aha'd. I don't think that this is me guessing the end of The Sixth Sense when 1999 was around and we were in the theater and I was like, oh, he's dead. I think the game wants me to know this. I think it wants me to be piecing this together and just wants me to breathe in the reality of that, of the fact that these kids might be crafting or imagining these elaborate dioramas as a way of processing the fact that they're just sad that one of them's moving away.
Well, if they've gone to the trouble of crawling out of their window to go up to the treehouse in the middle of a thunderstorm at night, they've probably got a pretty solid reason for seeing each other.
Damn right. Like maybe the idea of like, how fucking sad is it that our last night together we got a thunderstorm? But then that thunderstorm winds up being the sort of magical artifact that transports them to a place where at the very least they can think back on who they were and how they got to be how they are.
So the elements of this diorama then feels very anchored in the present moment.
Yes, absolutely. However, I don't think that in reality it is in present.
Right.
But more on that in a second. So the kids indicate clear sort of awe and astonishment with where they are and what they're doing. They're constantly stopping along the timeline to observe something like, say, a cricket ball that's as big as their head, or like weird machinery in the ground. And the fact that they will always stop and look at this object, it's part of the to and fro, it is a concrete thing that occurs, starts to indicate to me that this might complicate puzzles down the line, that I might have to factor in that Frendt or Adina needs to stop and look at this thing, and that's going to pause any of these other moving objects. I need to find out a way to, get a contact at a later point.
I might be jumping in early here with a question, Aaron, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, go for it. I've already explained this game's narrative design prematurely, so fuck it.
Do you get the feeling that these kids are stopping and looking at these objects because, hey, isn't it weird that there's a giant cricket ball? Or do you think they're stopping and looking at these objects because they go, I know what that cricket ball represents to us? Or both?
So it's kind of both. When it comes to something like the cricket ball, I think that it's definitely a case of I recognize this. But then they look at, so there's strange sort of cosmic machinery and architecture just peppered about in tiny bits around here. That tends to be the stuff that catches their attention more than anything, because it seems to be something that's somewhat alien to the rest of these artifacts.
Okay.
And then when I think that we've received all of the cosmic artifacts that we're going to receive, I find a lantern, but this lantern's a cosmic lantern.
Okay. Is it green?
No, unfortunately not. It was a missed opportunity for some product tie-in. So it winds up being the Maltese Falcon of this game. It's the object that I am carrying with me throughout, to bring to an altar that's at the top of the island in each level. Okay. So the light within this lantern, when I pick it up, we take it over to the altar, and together we place it into the altar. Now that's a constant. We always finish the level together. We always place the lantern into the altar together. The light of the lantern then shoots up into the sky and creates a star. In the middle of that star is a box of toys that's marked Adina's room. From there, once that's done, the camera then goes back down from the galaxy to the ground, where the kids are using the tree house as a boat to travel to another island. So this one has post boxes and terracotta pots littering its environment.
Right.
And I also received through this, given that I used the lantern to shoot light into the sky at the tail end of the previous level, this then teaches me that in doing so, I have lost light in the lamp. But a light in the lamp is necessary in order to finish a level. You have to be able to create a star, which enters in pull ropes. Now, these pull ropes will open bulbous yellow flowers that contain the light. Initially, that's all I need to worry about. Pull the rope, walk backwards, pick up light from the flower that was previously closed and is now open. Little bit of to and froing, but very, very minimal. The interesting thing about this, the thing that's definitely worth holding on to because it will be massively important moving forward, is that I don't need to interact with that light in order to pick it up. I only need to be in proximity to it.
Okay.
Which means that so long as the lamp is near it, the light will enter the lamp.
Okay.
So I also learned in this level that light bridges are a thing, that I may need to use light before I reach the altar. So there's an impasse I can't get across, as tends to be the case with an impasse once again. But using my lamp juice, I can power up the bridge. But in doing so, I lose the light from it.
Right.
This then introduces a different type of flower, a pink flower. This flower sucks light away. But there's also a rope pull for the light sucking flower. Pulling it will close that flower. So there's a lot of back and forthing. Well, not a lot, but more than before, back and forthing in order to solve this particular puzzle, which is just continuing to reinforce there is never a straight line forward here. You are always going to be going backwards to go forwards. So we hit the altar and we make a star that is a front door threshold. Now at this point, something interesting happens. These two stars start to swirl into a nexus that then explodes and creates a constellation. This constellation suggests another sort of diorama, but rather than an island or an abstract island, it's something much more realistic and straightforward. It's just one of the kids, and I think it's Adina, sitting on the front door threshold with the toy plane that was in the box marked Adina's room, while the other kid is sort of just standing at the tail end of the front door threshold. And so this is also something that I can move back and forth. I can push it forward, I can pull it backwards, and the camera just sort of rotates around this diorama and indicates that that the other kid, which I guess is Frendt, is waving to Adina, which makes me wonder whether or not this is potentially the first meeting of them, given that they seem to be in far higher spirits than they were when this game began. And so I'm like, well, this is moving equipment. I don't think this is, hi, see you later. The other cool thing about this is that there's a secret robot in each diorama, which is a cute little thing for you to go looking for. As you pull backwards and forwards, you might hear a ringing. If you focus on that ringing, then something will change within the environment. So in this case, the door opens slightly. One of the boxes unfolds and a cute little robot pops out and runs away. It's kind of like the Flubber Weebo thing, or the Scuba Buddies in Abzu.
Right. Secret robots are the best robots.
Secret robots, always the best robots. So the thing that I really love about this, and the thing that starts to connect for me, what this game is saying about memory and what this game's saying about sort of like the inevitability of things, is that in order to get past this, I have to hold left or right fully. And I have to allow a circle to fill in around this constellation. Now, this takes a few seconds. And it's the sort of thing that I can cancel at any time if I want to.
Right.
This, to me, the fact that this is something that I have to really like spend a collection of seconds filling up and allowing to sort of swell with the audio as well, is almost, to me, something like I'm confirming and committing this memory to something permanent, but also something that's gone. Which was, that meant a lot. So from here, we head back down, and we're now in sort of like an overworld level select place. But nothing aesthetically has changed from the experience up until this point. We're in the house, we're in the tree house, we're sailing along the ocean, and it's a vast one, and it has just little tiny islands jutting out here and there. So we move from where we were to the next set of levels. One of them has an orange plastic nozzled garden hose. And the other has an inflatable pool and a Hill's hoist. And I've written here, fuck, period, yes, period. Because if any of y'all know me, y'all know I love me some Australian suburbia. And there ain't nothing more Australian suburbia than a blow-up pool, the green garden hose with the orange nozzle, putting your finger over it to let it spray out, and a fucking Hill's hoist.
Yep. And, growing up in Queensland, I'll add a mango tree to that little mental diorama.
Oh, we had a mango tree too, dude. Oh, mango tree hanging over the chicken coop. So fucking good. Anyway, from here, I kind of stop detailing the individual things that occur, because it's more of the same, and I'm not saying that with any degree of negative criticism. It's just gradual reinforcement and complexification of what I've learned to date. So this game's easy fun. It's the solutions are relatively esoteric, but you usually just get there if you remember back and forth, to and fro is all you need to do.
Right. So this kind of leads to a question that I've been wanting to ask you, Aaron.
Yeah.
How much do you think this game wants you to be puzzling out how to solve it versus reflecting on what you're seeing and hearing and what the significance of those things might be?
The import is definitely more on you paying attention to what's around you.
Right.
And there's actually sort of an overlap that occurs between the two, because you definitely want to get to the end of it as soon as is relatively possible. But generally speaking, the interactions that you make to solve the puzzle are tied directly to the objects themselves.
Yep. That's what I was figuring, because it's going to be forcing you to pay attention to specific things.
Totally. And so it kind of like it winds up being the thing that in solving the puzzle, you're also paying attention to all of the objects that are around you because they're necessary in order to solve the puzzle. Right. So like for instance, the garden hose in this next level that I drop into, is fundamental to solving the entire thing, and that it at one point one of them jumps onto the hose, and then that sends an arc of water that travels over the entire diorama and lands in a bucket on the other side. That then being a place where one of the robots can land, collect light, move backwards.
Right. And another question that I have for you.
Yep.
You've described, I believe, 2 dioramas so far. Was it just 2 in your 10 minutes, or were there more?
So I have the one that I'm on currently, and I have one more for you.
Okay.
And then that's it. So 4 dioramas in total.
Okay. Do you get a sense that those dioramas, in the order that you're experiencing them, are moving through real time or real space in some sort of sequence, or are they hopping to and fro?
I think
similar to how you're hopping to and fro when you're in them.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a jumble because, I mean, if we consider the second one being a front door threshold, we then move into the backyard. So we kind of skip past the entire house in doing so.
Okay. Well, it's about the gardens between, not about the rooms inside.
That's true, and I think you're definitely not wrong there. But I think that this is. I think that the narrative trajectory, the linear narrative trajectory that this is following, is not necessarily tied completely to the objects within the environment.
Okay.
But maybe they are. In any case, one of the other objects. I mean, that's how I always am. It's just like there are no answers. An esky pops open at one point and sends icy poles flying, which made me really happy.
Nice.
I actually it's not in my playthrough, but when I did play this game the first time, I just went back and forwards on that about 50 times and just enjoyed watching them shoot through the air. This level introduces another element to consider in terms of how I can best get the light around to the altar, avoiding the light sucking flowers or not avoiding them, conversely, and then finding a way to achieve the light again afterwards. It introduces robots that start leaping around the level to very set points. So there are stations at which they stop and they set themselves in, and then they eject from them again. It's when they stop and they set in that I realize this is the sort of platform that I pulled the lamp from in the first place. Mm-hmm. So they're essentially moving lamp platforms, and I can pop that lantern back down onto the robot. At which point, when I start to and froing, the robot will then move with that lantern on it. So this is an example of the idea of like that small bit of influence that I'm permitted, in that I can place this object onto another object that will move, and in doing so, the lantern is going to change its movement pattern.
Right.
But the curve and the overall large objects are going to move the same way. Mm-hmm. And so this is the sort of thing that can allow me to like avoid a light-sucking flower that's ahead, that the robot will leap over it, or catch a light that's out of my reach, which is the case with this particular puzzle. Mm-hmm. So I finished this one after doing a whole bunch of, mucking around to and froing, trying to work out the best way to engage with this. At which point we create a new star, and that star is the popped esky, which made me very happy. The next level is the Hills Hoist one. Water balloons have been tied to the Hills Hoist, which made me very happy. A white plastic clothes basket is also sitting in the water, which is just fantastic.
And there's a kookaburra shitting all over you washing.
For us, there was a fucking magpie that loved our backyard, and it was cool because the magpie, like, over time came to like be cool with us and not swoop me when I went outside, and just wanted to sit out in the sun for a bit, and that was good when the Maggie stopped swooping. Fooled. Sorry?
Had you fooled?
Had me fooled, yeah, totally. Let me think that it was going to stop swooping me, and then it came in for the kill. But I won. So in this particular one, the Hills Hoist does what Hills Hoist do, and it spins as we move
Hits you
around
in the head
level.
and you have to go to the emergency room.
Yeah, totally. That was it for me. The thing rusted, and the hoister of them just busted, and so the whole thing just sank down, which is fine for most members of my family because I'm a head and a half taller than all of them. So they all pass nicely under it, and I'm the one that gets beamed. But anyway, that negative memory aside, the hill toy starts to spin, and it holds both a light-sucking and a light-giving flower. So this is complex. There is lots of back and forthing that I do within this part of the level, and I don't make it through before I hit my 10 minutes.
Right.
Now, one might say that is a non-rhythmic way for the 10 minutes to end, and therefore maybe this is a bad 10 minutes. But I respectfully disagree to that person who didn't put forward that argument.
You respectfully disagree with yourself.
Yes, I have constructed my straw man, and now I'm setting fire to it.
Okay.
But for me, the last 30 seconds of this game explain completely what it is. I am given the loop in its entirety, which is appreciate the environment that you're in, appreciate the objects, recognize them if there's any recognition for you to see within them, and then just play around. Because I think more than anything, these kids don't want to necessarily leave these dioramas, but they know they have to at some point.
Right.
It feels almost like I'm some form of energy existing between them that's telling them when it's time to move on.
Right.
And that happens when I sort of break through the unknowable, break through the weird, and find the solution that gets the light to the altar.
Right.
And that's really all I got. So do either of you fellas have any questions?
One of the things I had noted down during your description there was wondering whether or not you are one of the characters, because watching your footage back, it seems like maybe you're who I assume is Arina, because it seems to be the character that most often moves when I'm assuming you're pressing the sticks. But what you just said there makes it seem more like you're not really the characters, you are some other cosmic energy.
We must have some sort of Vulcan mind meld going here, Steve, because I was going to ask, does this feel like you're playing Brothers, as in the game Brothers?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Where both of them are under your control, or are they both moving based on your single input control, or are you definitely one of them and not the other?
An excellent question. And before I answer it, first of all, sorry that I've been saying Adina this entire episode. I'm just looking now at the box and being like, oh yeah, it's Arina.
That's fine.
My big bad. But anyway, who I'm controlling in this game, the answer is both and none. But it's certainly not one of them. And so the reason I say
one
both
of them always lies.
Yes, that's right.
One of them always tells the truth.
The reason I say that is because I'm controlling the flow of time.
Right. They're both under their own control. You're just kind of scrubbing what they're already doing themselves.
Yeah. Where that changes and where I get a degree of input is the fact that Arina can place or remove the lamp from the robot platforms, and Frendt can pull on the rope pulls. Those are things that I need to input. And so that's kind of where my answer is both and none. And that's where I sort of wonder whether or not I'm that influencing energy that's like, you're done here. You need to move on. The night is running out. You need to continue reminiscing and get ready to say goodbye.
At the risk of being a little on the nose, Aaron.
Yeah.
Does it feel like perhaps rather than being one or both of these characters, you are the friendship between the characters?
Stop stealing my thoughts.
Because I do want to talk about this title because it is a beautiful title.
It's a very good title. Yeah, I mean, totally. I think that in regardless of whether or not I am embodying their friendship, this experience is exuding their friendship. Every facet of this is a memorialization and a cementing in the fucking sky of the connection that these two people share. So I don't think it's at all out of the realm of possibility to suggest that I am their relationship. I would love that if that were the case, because then that is this game full surreal. Like, we are well and truly on the other side. But unlike Dali, we're not fascist dicks.
Great episode subtitle.
I love that reading. It hadn't occurred to me until you suggested it, but I think that could absolutely be the case. And that sort of filters over into the idea that, like, because the question then gets raised, well, then who is it? Is it the friendship that says, Frendt, pull the lever? But the answer is kind of yeah, because I know, at least from the really strong friendships that I had when I was around the age that these kids appear to be, a sort of, not symbiosis occurs, but a shared language certainly emerges where we share things, we share an identity almost. There is like this third identity that emerges, which is the friendship. It's the connection you share that no one else shares.
And I think, just sort of reflecting on my own experience as well, that can be so second nature to you that you don't actually realize that it's there until it's about to be gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely. Or even more painfully, when you reconnect and that spark is reignited and you realize only in that moment how much you lost.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not this game.
But that's not this game.
That's the sequel.
Yeah, this is wait for Call Me by Your Name 2 to find out. So yeah, essentially the arc of this game is not the point where you realize how sad it is that this is gone. It's a celebration of everything that came up to this point.
So how do you feel, Aaron? Because clearly these two people are feeling a little melancholy and a little down. What's the sense of feeling that you're getting from this as an outside observer?
Eventual peace.
Yeah.
Is what I think it is. There's a degree of stress that I have to engage with this experience based on the fact that there is something to solve. There is a solution to that something that needs solving. I need to identify and enact that solution. But like I said, it's easy fun. I don't need to worry too much about it. It's almost like, I mean, it is the last goodbye that you have with your best friend before one of you or both of you are parting ways.
If you're in a situation where you realize that it's your last goodbye,
that's
you don't
right.
Always.
You don't always have that. Yeah. No. But in a moment where it seems that Arina and Frendt have this, it's sort of, it's that combination of happiness and sadness that one can experience simultaneously. It is pleasantly melancholic.
Steve, I'll stop stealing your thoughts and I'll let you have another thought.
So another question. I haven't played this game. I only watched your 10 minutes, Aaron.
Yep.
I don't know if you've played more than that of this game or not.
I finished it when it came out. Yep.
So I guess it's kind of outside of 10 minutes, but even if it wasn't, do you expect this game to escalate in the complexity it's showing you?
In terms of mechanical complexity?
Yeah.
I expect it to, at this point, level out at some point. And start to just see how it can remix what it already has. Because just based on the fact, like, the Hills Hoist is the object where I'm like, oh, okay, there is so much that you can do with the light sucking and the light giving flowers. There's so many objects that you can put them on to complexify how I navigate around the space. I don't feel as if there's too much more in the toy box to throw out at me. It's just going to be shaking up what's already there.
So here's my hypothesis.
Shoot.
This branching that you're doing, to me, being very straightforward and logical, I suppose, about it, and not as poetic as perhaps I should be for this game, seems like it is the two characters negotiating their shared memories.
Yeah, that's poetic as fuck, dude.
Right? This is this is them. To me, this, watching you play this, it reads as them reliving their relationship and the things that they have done together.
Yep.
And all the points where you wind back and try something else is them having like do we do that first? Do we do that first? Do we play cricket with the giant ball first, or do we jump around on the hill hoist first? I don't remember. Like, you're sorting out the order of these memories that they were doing in order to have not even necessarily what I think is interesting here, not the correct memory, but reaching a shared consensus on what their relationship was.
Absolutely.
And then going, we agree this is what happened.
Stop stealing my thoughts.
But I think the thing that's
Damn you, Halliwell.
the thing that's super worth sticking on there is that it's weird that the two of you are thinking the same things over and over and over. But the other thing that's worth sticking on is that this is the opposite. So Braid was the example that was brought up earlier as, is it like Braid? Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing that Braid presented to me when I first played it was the idea that I could find myself in a situation where it doesn't matter how far back or forwards I'm going to go, I'm going to die. I have lost the level at this point and I'm going to need to reset. And so I wondered initially when I was playing this, whether this back and forthing was some sort of attempt to hold on to or reject the reality that one of these children was moving. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's what you're describing. There is an acceptance here. There is no conflict of Goonies-esque, we have to make sure that we save your ability to hang around here. There is a sad acceptance that it's occurring, and so this is spending the final night working out how are we going to remember each other, how are we going to remember us, and how can this space, this treehouse that is the garden between our abodes, how is that going to cement these memories for us?
Sounds quite lovely.
It's beautiful as fuck, man. Like, not a review, but Jesus Christ.
It's going to be hard to get in the back of a Nintendo box, but we'll see what we can do.
Just in air quotes. Beautiful as fuck, ellipses, Jesus Christ. And that's from a well-respected, award-winning game developer. This game exudes loveliness. It exudes kindness. It exudes a relationship between a male and a female character that isn't romantic. Constellations are cool. I like the fact that the fact that what we're creating here essentially are stars that are representative of the memories we share, I think is a really important detail to stick on. Because this is the sort of thing that if one of them is moving, then essentially this is an opportunity to choose what are our stars, what are the things that we can look up at the night sky and recognize together, same time, no matter what, so long as they're in the same hemisphere. Can they look up into the sky and see the same thing? I think stars was exactly the right thing to choose for that. Because in terms of when we think about the action of looking up at the stars, oftentimes that's done in a moment of introspection or pensiveness, or, needing your dad lying to tell you something important that needs to be remembered.
Okay. Was there anything else people wanted to ask about, or shall we do a 10-minute check?
Cool. So does this game tell me what it is? Yeah, it does. I think we've covered that beautifully in our conversation around this. This is a surreal exploration of two children knowing that their time together is coming to an end and working on identifying what parts of this very dear friendship they need to hold on to. It engages with the cruelty of memory, but also engages with the fact that memory and our engagement with it is a tool. And if we use it the right way, then we're preserving what matters most. In terms of how to play it, it does that from the minute it begins. You go left, you go right, to move time forward or move time back, and then slowly little atoms are connected that complexify the toing and froing.
Groovy.
This game is fucking wonderful. I love every bit about it. Not a review, but 10-minute check's over. So this is the opinions corner.
This is a section here that I'm going to edit out.
Are you fucking kidding me? This is radio.
Okay, so I think that means that it's time for the plugs.
Indeed. Hey, welcome to the plugs. You made it here. We all did. And herein is how you can contact us. If you would like to contact us. We would love to hear from you. We live for that shit.
We do live
And you can do that via email. The email address is contact@thefirst10minutes.com. You can also find us on various social media platforms and services. So if you wanted to find us on YouTube, you can find us as The First 10 Minutes. If you want to find us on Twitter, guess what? First 10 Minutes. Facebook, First 10 Minutes. Libsyn, First 10 Minutes.
Oh my God.
Instagram, First 10 Minutes.
Woofa doofa.
There are more, but those are the ones you'll probably want to use. And we'd love to hear from you. If you liked it, didn't like it, you got thoughts about Gardens Between, get at us.
Yep.
And if you want to get at people individually, Tony, you exist online.
I do. If you'd like to get in touch with me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is @Kalinskald. That's KALINSKALD. I also do another podcast where I interview game developers about what makes them tick, and you can find that at downloadablecontext.com. Hey, Aaron.
Yes.
People want to get in touch with you, how might they do such a thing?
They can hit me up on Twitter @RundownFlamingo, spelled how it sounds. If you'd like to check out my Red Dead Redemption 2 exploits, you can feel free to head to youtube.com/caboose88. That's KABOOSE88. I'm working on trying to change that custom URL. I'm going through and I'm selecting little chunks of the game that I think communicate the narrative design that I am crafting for myself within it. I like that it's an experience that's allowing me to be Shane from the movie Shane. So please check that out if you have any interest whatsoever. Hey, Steve, I want to talk to you.
Twitter, Steve Hollywell. I'll be there, probably.
Steve, are you perchance playing through the original Half-Life on its 20th anniversary on YouTube?
To date this episode, yes I am.
So yes, you can find Steve playing through Half-Life on our YouTube channel.
There's a bunch of stuff on the YouTube channel now.
There's
There's many games. There's a not yet complete The Witness, which is rapidly approaching 50 episodes.
And how far through it are you?
I mean, no one can really know how far through The Witness they are. I think I'm getting there.
Oh, bullshit.
There's not many world puzzles left.
Just the second 90% to go.
Yep, so just got to polish it up.
Easy.
And I think that brings us to a clumsy conclusion. So thank you all very much for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya.